All right, this is the rapid fire portion of the interview where I will ask you very quick questions and I want very quick responses. So no thinking slow. We're going to use the thinking fast part of your brain. When did you first buy a home?
I bought a home with my wife in 1983 in Berkeley, California. We were very fortunate because we were buying in a period where the market was slow. So unlike now where houses are selling in matters of days, this house had been sitting on the market. We did a couple of things that were, in hindsight, very good. My wife had a real estate agent's license, which gave her a lockbox key. We could go around and look at all of the houses in Berkeley. And we looked at everything on the market. I probably looked at 40 houses in our price range. So when we saw the house we bought, I knew that was the one I wanted to buy. I knew it was a good price, and I liked it.
Question 2. What were some of the best and worst parts about becoming a homeowner?
Well, we were going to have a family. There's this sense of I'm settled down. I had traveled quite a bit. After I bought a home, I think I told you earlier, I went back to school, I got a career. So it felt like I was growing up. The worst part was I made a lot of mistakes. I bought an old house and had work done on it. I found out later that while I had walls opened up, I should have been doing seismic work. There's a lot of things in life that you only do once or twice, and quite often after you do them, you find out that you should have done them differently. So that's one of the challenges with home buying.
My parents said the same thing about having kids. Is a home a good investment?
Usually a home is a good investment if you're buying a home that you can afford and you know that you're going to be living, or you have good reason to believe that you're going to be living in the same place for several years. It's like any other investment. There's no guarantee. You got to be buying something you can afford. You have to be paying a reasonable price, and you have to stay there long enough because there's a lot of transactions costs involved in buying a home, and it takes a few years, basically, even with normal growth, to cover those.
It's the most important piece of advice you can give someone when they're buying a home.
Figure out what your price range is, not based on what you want, but what you can afford. Figure out what you can afford, look at things you can afford, because things you can't afford are always going to become appealing. You're going to say, I'm going to stretch, which is not a good idea. So figure out your price range, look at a lot of houses in your price range, and when it comes time to buy, get at least 4 quotes on a mortgage and make sure that you're comparing mortgages with all the same fees and features and get a good interest rate.
What is the biggest personal finance mistake you made in your early adult life?
Probably the biggest personal finance mistake I made in my life was something that turned out to have benefited me in an unusual way. It was this. I got interested in the stock market and I traded actively without any information. I bought, I sold. And why this turned out well is because when I got my PhD, I studied finance, I studied behavioral finance, and my dissertation was focused on investor behavior. And I would just look back at my own experience and say, well, I did that. I bet everyone's doing that. For example, there's something called disposition effect. I wrote part of my dissertation about it. It's the tendency to hold on to your losing investments and sell winners. And I thought, I always did that. It must be what others do. And when I obtained data on investor trades, that's what I found.
Okay, a spin on that last question. What is a personal finance mistake that you keep making even after you've extensively studied why you're making it?
All right. Well, I can tell you the mistake that I make over and over and over again. I'm overly optimistic about outcomes. Now, in particular, when I have a task to do, I'm going to write a paper, I'm going to make a video, I'm going to do, if I were to write a book, I would always underestimate how long things are going to take me. And I know the solution. from a paper that Daniel Kahneman wrote, which is to take what he calls the outside view. Look at past examples, look at how long something has taken you in the past, how long it's taken other people. Look at outcomes. If you're trying to think about, well, should I expect my house to go up in value? Don't think about your house, just take a look at a broad cross-section of outcomes. What has happened to other people? What's happened to other people where you are in other places? There's a tendency to get too optimistic when you focus on your own situation.
What is the most surprising result you've seen come out of one of your research papers or endeavors, or that of some of the greats like Dick Thaler, Danny Kahneman, or Amos Tversky?
Well, the most surprising result that came out of my own research was on one of the very first papers I wrote. I'd written a theory paper that said if investors are overconfident, they are going to trade too much. And what I thought that was going to mean is that the stocks they bought and the stocks they sold would, on average, perform the same, but that the investors would lose money by running up transactions costs that were high. And then I got empirical data. I got trading records for investors making their own decisions at a discount brokerage firm. And to my surprise, I found that even ignoring the transactions costs, the stocks these investors were buying were underperforming the ones they just sold. So I was initially surprised and puzzled, and over the years I've come to realize that investors are probably creating situations that end up working against them. For example, buying stocks that have been going up for a while that are running out of steam, holding on to stocks that they own that are doing poorly until they get to a point that they feel like, oh, I have to sell and selling at a loss. So I think people are managing to lose money in a way that I didn't think was possible.
Pick one famous academic from the past that you would love to share a beer with.
Someone I want to share a beer with. Well, I would say I've been fortunate. I have gotten to share a glass of wine with my two favorite academics, Daniel Kahneman and Richard Thaler, both of whom are brilliant and entertaining.